In the heart of Virginia, there's a stretch of pavement that has ingrained itself in American racing history. Built in 1957 with just a bulldozer and a plot of land, Virginia International Raceway has become an icon. Over the years since its reopening in 2000, it has hosted IMSA, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR, SCCA, and Champ Car races. Legends have raced there, including Roger Penske, Mark Donohue, Richard Petty, Hurley Haywood, Dan Gurney, and more. Between turns 11 and 12 stood a defying feature, an old oak tree. This tree stood untouched, shading the south end of the course for decades. For some, oak tree became a symbol of VIR and a reminder of how road courses used to be built. They used to be built with the lay of the land, following each contour and moving around obstacles, not through them. Earth may have been moved, but not tarnished. Oak tree was a lasting memory of when tracks were not just built, they came to be, like the tree. Although oak tree no longer stands, nor does hog pen, turn 17, the corners both still bear the name of what used to exist. And the track stays unchanged the way it was meant to be, with the lay of the land, for the land. Maybe that's why Paul Newman called it heaven on earth.
The twists and turns of Virginia's legendary road course play host to the third round of the season for the Washington, D.C. region SCCA Virtual Racing League. Carved out of the East Coast soil, this 3-mile track features a corner of every type. At the far end of the track, an oak tree stood guarding Turn 12's apex. Although the tree no longer stands, it's immortalized there, here in iRacing, as the landmark of one of the most famous corners of all time. Kyle Heyer with Connor Horn and I bring you the third round of the season for the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. Connor, tonight, 2 races. Big Bore with the Mustang, and then front-wheel drive touring cars to wrap it up, just like we did last week at Mission Raceway Road Atlanta, though, but this time at Virginia International Raceway.
It's going to be a blast. Virginia is a sort of a tough track to get down and be fast at because there's so many different corners. Every corner seems like a completely different challenge from the last to the next. It got straightaways, big straightaways, 2 very big straightaways that we're going to have to deal with here. But you also have a lot of slow apex and corners, some double apex and corners. You really need to be at the top of your game to master this track. Absolutely.
17 corners, the last of which Hog Pen leads up onto the front straightaway. The other corner that we should mention, Turn 12. They call that Oak Tree. Although the track no longer stands in real life, it is still here in iRacing. Of course, South Bend at turn number 10. That's a tricky one as well. Gotta make sure you don't drop a tire off there and find yourself off in the weeds. Heading down to the racetrack now, qualifying for the Big Bore cars is already underway as we get down and bring you action for the third round of the season. Just shy of 20 cars for the Big Bores here tonight. It seems the front-wheel drive touring cars have been the more popular choice so far this season, but that doesn't mean that these Mustangs aren't going to put on a big show, Connor. I love the fact that we've got a 6-speed manual H-pattern gearbox in these cars. Still requires a lot of talent and finesse to get these things downshifted.
Oh, it's always a fun challenge in these things, and we've seen the past few weeks that drivers struggle sort of the transition to this car, not really used to being able to have to shift this thing you can't really waste your time shifting. You have to be on the money with them, so it's been definitely an interesting challenge to follow throughout the races that we've done so far.
Here's Kyle Herbst in the number 89, currently scored in 3rd. Andrew Pilata is back this week in the number 96. See the front brake rotors glowing, getting a lot of heat in that number 96 as he heads down the hill and towards the end of the lap and into Hog Pen. And again, this car weighs just about 3,600 pounds. It is a heavy beast to lug around this track, which at points is very narrow, Connor. So keeping all 4 tires on the black stuff will be crucial tonight.
There's a lot of one-lane portions of the track. When you get out of turn 4, that's really single file all the way out of 6A, even in the 7, 8, and 9, down to the South Bend. You really don't want to even be thinking about double file, let alone single file, because these cars, they are heavy, they're also wide. It's really difficult to throw them around a lot of the times, and you have to be really careful with where you're placing your car. If you miss one apex in any of these S's, you're going to be really really in a bad spot for the next couple of corners.
Yeah, you'll certainly be chasing the car around quite a bit. Here's Ken Houseal, the number 23, just jumped to pole with a 204.323. Paul Darling running in the Mustangs tonight. Good to see Paul back. Had an excellent battle with Tom O'Gorman last night in a touring car race, and hopefully we'll see Paul in the subsequent TCR race here tonight as well. Jake King returns this week in the number 39. Here he is running 6th right now, but half the field has yet to qualify. Kevin Zhu, Eddie Kitarakis, Camden Gruber, Todd Rushing, Shoemaker, and Jack Chrissy all on track attempting to put a lap in before the end of the session.
So kinds of laps, they will put down. A bit late in the session to start. Some of these drivers might not be able to get a lap down. Jack Chrissy, he's just coming out of a final corner, so he's going to barely get 1 lap in. Shoemaker is already on his lap. Camden Gruber he's had a few goes at it, but he hasn't been able to put a clean lap down. He's coming to the line now. We'll see if this one is a clean lap, see what he puts down. How far up the board does he go? 205.374. That's good enough for, I believe, 8th place.
Yeah, that'll put him P8. His first timed lap. He'll have enough time for 1 more, I believe. Might be a bit shy. Todd Rushing down and into the right-hander here that leads into Oak Tree, then squaring up and getting a good run off the corner is important. And sometimes you have the tendency to kind of rush through the gears and get shifted up into those higher gears. But if you rush the shifting on this old H-pattern manual, it will bite you, Connor. Very, very easy to miss a shift and then spend half your time trying to find a gear in a box of neutrals down the backstretch.
Yeah, you're going to be in a tough spot. You cannot focus on shifting gears too much. If you make that your complete focus, you're easily going to overthink it. Let's see what he does into the corners here. Such a vital part of a track that goes straight and get right. Roller coaster, 14A through 15 downhill. Got to be careful not sliding off right here. And then it's a very tough section downhill again. Have to nail the curbs to even make the corners correct. Don't go too wide there. Cannot go wide there, or else you're going to be very screwed. And then you get a good run up to the line. Yeah,
the good news for the Mustang drivers tonight is that these cars really do take curbs well, so you can be pretty aggressive on the attack. And Rushing will come across the line at 206.083. That will put him, it looks like, should put him 12th, but I don't think that time is going to count. It does not. Had an off-track moment there that lap. So it looks like we're going to have 4 or 5 drivers that will not put times in before the end of the session. But currently, Pilata jumped back to pole, the 204.095 by 67 thousandths of a second, puts his number 96 on the front row.
That's a very impressive lap right at the end of his qualifying session. So he kind of waited a little bit and just ran a few laps, not pacing around the track, but just being clean driving in those first 2 laps just to get the tires heated up and in a good window to operate for that final lap. And he put all his money in on that final lap and it paid off.
Camden Gruber coming back around. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Will that last lap count to the line? Not quite. He's going to miss out on another lap. 205.296, I think it would have been, which would have been an improvement. Heading down to the racetrack now to get started. We're going to have a full pace lap, which is good news for everybody to get the tires warm on these Mustangs here, Connor. That'll be crucial in the TCR race as well, getting tire temp in, because the run down to turn 1, this corner is absolutely brutal. If you do not keep your car on the racetrack, you're going to understeer off, as you could in NASCAR as well. Unforgiving here. There's not a lot of paved runoff, or any, really. So if you drop a tire off, it's going to be a long ride.
Yeah, we saw last week, especially with the TCRs, if you don't get a warm-up lap, you're going to see a lot of slipping and sliding. Road Atlanta last week, we saw a lot of incidents that we didn't see in the first week. I believe at Summit Point, they had a full pace lap, and they really weren't sliding. Everyone was good from the get-go, so it's going to be a good change of pace for a lot of these drivers to get their tires warmed up, and hopefully they won't have to even deal with the possibility of having cold tires into turn number 1.
Well, once you get them warm, you can't get them hot. Look at the track temp, 102 degrees Fahrenheit. This track, at least here in iRacing, is pretty notorious for getting scorching track temperatures, so we'll have to keep an eye on that throughout the race and see if drivers are burning up the rear tires while they're sliding their big Mustangs around trying to make things work. So waiting for a couple more drivers to join the grid here, and then we're going to roll through our starting lineup, but we're going to take a minute just because it's such a long pace lap here. I don't think we'll have to rush the starting lineup process here tonight with how long this pace lap is.
Yeah, we should have a lot of time to dwell on what might happen in turn number 1 and who might get the lead off the front row. Pilata and Houseal, Herbst, Kissera, Darling, 5 really fast drivers. Throw in Jake King, Peter Schnorr, and even more drivers back there. You have a lot of drivers who can do a lot of damage, but it's going to be very important to get to the front early because there's not too many passing zones other than into turn number 1 and then turn number 14, excuse me.
All right, cars rolled off now, and let's finally roll through our starting lineup on row number 1. Starting on pole on the inside lane with a time of 2:04.095, Andrew Pilata in the number 96. He'll start alongside Ken Halseal in second.
In row 2, Kyle Herbst is in third. He's been so close to a few wins now in these Mustangs. Rob Casera, same with him alongside in P4. That's your second row.
In row number 3, starting in 5th at the time of 2:04.783, Paul Darling in the number 155. That's that blue Mustang in shot. Then Jake King in the number 39. He will roll off in 6th.
And then P7, just off of Jake King's time, that's Peter Schnorr in that 32 Mustang. And alongside him, with almost a very identical lap, is Camden Gruber. Almost got that one lap down at the very end.
Very, very tight in qualifying. Row number 5, Bob Casera in the number 45, and Mike Leader in the number 53. Casera in the Tide Ride, Mike Leader in the green and black.
Thought that was a pace car, but no, that's Adam Kovac in P11 with a 2:05.997. Alongside him, the Oreo machine, Kevin Zhu.
Behind them in row number 7, Eddie Kudarakis in the number 15 car, followed by Louis Alessi in the number 43. He will roll off in 14th.
The next row of drivers who didn't put a time down, that would be Jack Chrissy in the number 6 machine, and then Zach Rubin alongside him. That's not Zach Rubin, excuse me. That would be, I believe that's going to be Cristobal Rodriguez alongside him. Sorry.
Yes, the rows are going to shift and shuffle because it looks like Zach Rubin is not going to take the grid. So these last couple rows might be a bit out of order with Rubin moving on. He'll be racing in the TCR event a little bit later tonight. Heading down into Oak Tree, but first over the crest and then down the hill into the braking zone for turns 11 and turn 12. This is one of your primary passing opportunities, the other being turn 1, the other being roller coaster. A couple places to pass here after long straightaways, so that makes for good action for us to watch tonight. 10 laps should be the race distance once we get going racing here in just a minute.
And one of the main passing zones into roller coaster turn 14, obviously into turn number 1, you're going to be really focusing on the exits out of 17 and 17A, out of Hogpen, and also out of Oak Tree. The exits are going to dictate who gets the position into those certain corners, because we've seen drivers, if they don't get a good run out of long straightaways in these Mustangs, it's going to really bite you down the straightaways with draft and everything. So you have to be on top of your game. You can't be focusing on a corner that you might have missed behind you. You have to nail every corner and every exit, especially at a track like this. One
last look at the weather. Still 102-degree track temp. You see Jake King in the 39 warming up those tires. So is Camden Gruber behind him, getting some temperature in their slick racing tires. These 3,600-pound beasts up and over into roller coaster, aptly named because of its drop basically off the face of a cliff and then down towards Hogpen. The Washington, D.C. Region Virtual Racing League's 3rd round of the winter season on Sim TV. Andrew Pilata, Ken Halseal, Kyle Herbst, Rob Casera. A bit of a wait to get the green flag here at Virginia International Raceway. Long front straightaway, the flag goes up, and way off in the distance you see the field approaching side by side and 10 rows deep. 96-23 sharing that front row, and the clock will start ticking now. Green flag flies, 20 minutes on the board. We're going racing from VIR.
Moment of truth. Did you warm your tires up enough? Into turn number 1, Pilata has the lead, but it's 2 by 2 behind him, Halseal and Herbst. And then that's Casera and Darling side by side. Everyone gets through cleanly for the most part. Everyone just trying to give room where there's really not a lot of room to give.
Gruber dropped 2 tires off and a bit of a stack up behind. Everyone keeps it going the right direction. Kyle Herbst gains a couple spots. He puts himself into second after starting back in row number 2. So he moves up a spot and into the flanking position of Andrew Pilata.
Oh.
Spin behind, and it's Eddie Kudarakis in the 15.
Going the wrong way there. I think he got loose out of a corner, couldn't catch it. All good there. He's going to get it back going. Not lose as much time as you might think there. Everyone's still trying to sort out. Not a place you want to be side by side through here. A lot of single file. Some drivers dropping some tires off in the dirt now.
Now into the S's. Andrew Pilata leads the horses up the hill. Watch this. Straight line it as best you can. Use every inch of curbing. There's more there now than there is here in the simulator, so the track is actually a little narrower than it is in real life. Then over South Bend and down towards Oak Tree. Pilata's lead half a second as they head into one of the most iconic corners in North American road racing history. Pilata, Herbst, Halseal, Darling, Casera, your top 5. And still everyone knows the tail line astern. No passing happening at the moment. Everyone just kind of warming up and finding out where the grip level is here at VIR.
Yeah, everyone did a great job getting single file. Kudarakis has gone off again in the back, but very quickly single file throughout the field. Had some stack-ups here and there, but everyone did a good job staying pretty orderly and just sorting everyone sorting each other out there. Pretty orderly, like I said. Not really any battles forming, some drivers close here and there, but no one wanting to peek in a roller coaster.
Well, here's one. Todd Rushing in the number 9 up on Kevin Zhu in the 243 in the Oreo car. And in the dirt,
Whoa.
Kevin Zhu goes for a slide and gathers it back up. A little bit of contact, and Kyle Herbst out of second place is turned around.
He spun it. Don't see where that was. That was somewhere going downhill in a roller coaster. No one really near him. I think he just got loose on his own.
Yeah, just caught the curb at a funny angle. And I honestly don't really understand what happened there. You can pretty safely hammer the curbs in these Mustangs, but it was not kind to him that time through. We move back forward again. I think Shoemaker in the 55 is stranded, and he's got some damage on that 55 car.
First set of damage we've seen. He already got up on the hill. Look out. That was Trussell passing him.
Back up towards the front. Pilata leads by 1.6. Move the fight to second. Howe Seal is the man leading that train. Then it's Paul Darling, Rob Casera. That's that blue and green car, the 177, followed by Jake King and Peter Schnorr. And just behind them, Bob Casera tags Schnorr and sends him for a big old slide. Gathers it up, though.
It looked like Schnorr might have thought he had him clear, and Casera thought he was still there, and it sort of just came together. No harm, no foul. I don't think any damage on those cars. Just a tense moment. They tried to get single file.
Look at Adam Koback under pressure from Camden Gruber, who dropped a tire in turn 1 on the opening lap and slowed it down just enough to regain grip and keep all 4 tires on the road racing surface. And will now have to claw back a couple of the positions that he lost, and they're both off at South Bend, both Gruber and Koback, and here comes Mike Leader.
Where does Leader go? He's going to go to the right side. Jack Chrissy off in the distance. A few drivers have been going off there. Someone's way off. South Bend has proven to be a very tough corner to navigate. Saw Ken Alciel almost go wide there. Everyone really struggling to get the line straight through there.
Yeah, these cars are not exactly the most nimble cars ever, and when you put them over the hill, over a crest like that, they get very light, the suspension's very soft, and then they come down and compress on the downhill portion into turn 11. So a lot of suspension motion, and the chassis moves around a lot. Now Darling keeping that pressure on Howe Seal, but under fire from Rob Casera in the 177 just behind. And heading back around to complete lap number 3, Casera looking very racy right now.
And Darling trying to get away from him, but Casera's got all over him right now. They've stayed. Casera stayed in the 4th position. Paul Darling's actually gained 2 positions, so he passed Casera. Casera still challenging right back. Jake King can't quite stay with them to even challenge right now. Those 3 sort of on their own right now as Peter Schnorr and Bob Casera dropped back after their contact.
A lot of leaning on the brakes here. You already see the front rotors glowing bright orange. And in a race this short, you wouldn't really have to worry too much about brake fade, so that's good to know, but you can just tell how much those brakes are working. Again, this car does have anti-lock brakes, so you don't have to worry about locking them up necessarily, but it will contribute to tire temperature, and that was something we mentioned in the pre-race, was how hot will things get. The track is cooling down, but the action is heating up here with 15 minutes to go.
For sure heating up, especially for the 2nd position. It just doesn't look like how Seal can pull away from Paul Darling, Casera, and Jake King right there. Battles all over the racetrack. Some 2 cars, some maybe 5 more cars. It's Andrew Pavlado. My goodness, I couldn't even help but notice he's really using more than a curb. He's actually dipping his lefts and rights into the grass through the S portion of this track right now.
Yeah, again, that's something you can at points comfortably do, but we saw Kyle Herbst get bit by that through roller coaster. Koback still defending from Camden Gruber. Will they make it through South Bend this time? Ooh, Koback a little off the apex. That's going to let Gruber get right to the rear tailpipes over South Bend and now into Oak Tree, with Mike Leader keeping the pressure on both these drivers for a top 10 spot.
Gruber showed the nose, wasn't able to make it work, but he's going to get a better run here. Trying to look back up at the front. Pilata still putting the distance on everyone behind him, but very interesting. Gruber got such a good exit, but he just couldn't carry it. He didn't have enough draft to use, but he's going to try to hang on the left rear of Kovac here.
Drag race, Mustang's home territory, especially on such a long straightaway. Now use the gravity to slow the car down, and Gruber a little bit careful on the brakes. That's going to leave Mike Leader to dive up the inside. As they race, that'll give Kovac a little bit of breathing room. Wow, look at the jump that Gruber just did through Hawk Pen and managed to somehow keep it on course while having only 2 tires serving as the grip interface with Virginia International Raceway. Darling still. I thought Howe Seal was the one holding this train up, but I think Darling is not quite as quick as that 23 ahead of him, and Casera a little bit faster. And this has been the cork in the bottle so far.
Actually pretty even times, Pilata and Hausiel, but Pilata's still a little bit faster as he really rips the curbs. Just a quick note back to that battle with, quick battle with Gruber and Kobach. That's how difficult it is to pass in a roller coaster. You have to either back out and hope the guy in front of you sort of just sends it, you can do a crossover, or you just have to send it yourself on the left side or the right side of the car you're driving. You have to do one or the other. If you send it there, you just better hope you clear them, because it's going to be a rude awakening if you don't.
Both these cars, Kobach and Gruber, hanging the rear end out through Snake, trying to get that set of corners set up because it leads into the famous S's here at VIR. And this is where I think Gruber's been a little quicker up through the S's and into South Bend, but really tricky to make a pass here. You're going so fast and the line is so single line there. As Gruber understeers, he'll drop a tire, and where's Leader? Here he comes in the 53 to the outside.
See if he can stick it around the outside. Another driver off, but these two side by side. He just shoves Leader off the racetrack, not giving him any room to race with there.
Oh, car behind him spinning. Jack Cressy turns around.
Looks like he kept it clean, backs briefly into the tires. See if he continues, waiting for traffic to clear. No harm done there.
Hausiel, Darling, Casera. Line astern here for second.
Yeah, it's starting to pile up. We'll see. Sometime soon we'll see if Peter Schnorr can get up there, but that being said, he has not been running times close to the top 5 right now, and he's actually still under attack from Bob Casera. These two have been right next to each other since the start of this run.
The battle rages for second as it does for sixth, Bob Casera and Peter Schnorr. I think these two might have had a little bit of a coming together earlier in the race, but no damage done, so they both live to see another race. But this is a drag race down the front straightaway, and looks like Schnorr might have had a slowdown. Loses some ground here.
He might have just been letting him by. I didn't see anywhere where he might have went off. I think he realized Bob Casera was a little bit faster and he didn't want to hold him up any longer.
Second place, Paul Darling has found some legs. Last time by was 3/10 faster than Ken Hausiel, who just ran a 2:04.216, or excuse me, a 2:05.207. It's a 2:04.971 for Paul Darling. And consider this battle on fire right now with 4 drivers all scrapping for second place.
Ken Hausiel was matching the times of Andrew Pilata, but Pilata pulled out about 7/10 last time by, so we were talking about how it looked like Paul Darling was holding up Casera and Jake King, but now it looks like Hausiel's kind of dropping back to everyone here, and now it's Paul Darling on the attack.
Oh, they have Hausiel a little bit offline through the S's. Hausiel's taking a very shallow approach to South Bend, but it's a safe line to take. If you try to turn in even a little bit later and not leave that margin of error on corner exit, you can find yourself off course pretty quickly. Jake King bringing up the rear, the caboose of this group. How much pressure will he apply to Casera as we got Gruber and Kobach door-to-door again through Oak Tree?
Gruber's going to get room. Kobach over the curb a little bit. He's not going to be able to get any sort of run out of Oak Tree, and I think Gruber's going to have to clear before they even get the roller coaster, and Mike Leader is going to try to follow.
Yeah, the slipstream is going to help Leader here, but can Kobach shut the door? Not quite, and so Leader will get overlap here by the time they get to roller coaster, but will he have enough of a fender alongside? Not quite. Kobach will slot himself in behind Gruber. Leader right there behind.
Whoa.
There was almost a touch there, I think, coming down.
As close as you get without touching, that's for sure. Leader just couldn't get the line that he wanted because of Kobach disrupting him. As Kobach really hopping a curb, trying to gain time back, really sideways there, just trying to get any sort of traction. It's really hurting him. Leader a little bit of a run, not enough to make anything happen, but we saw right there, Kobach kind of struggling. As soon as Gruber got around, he sort of pulled away.
Yeah, that big lateral slide tells me all I need to know about Kobach's rear tires. They are hot right now. Not a lot of pliability in the sidewall at this point. He is really struggling to keep that car in line, and Leader should be able to apply the pressure and crack Kobach here in the next couple of laps. But out front, at least in second place, this battle is not quite ignited to the extent that I would expect. We have about 5 laps to go, and someone is going to start making the move that triggers this whole thing to turn upside down. If Darling or Hausiel trade positions, I think Casera and King will try to strike.
Gotta try something sooner or later, but there's just not many places to try it. If you don't get runs down these long straightaways, it's very difficult to make something happen. We've seen that. It's been Hausiel maybe sort of on the back foot at times. Also, Darling struggled at times, but they get good runs out of some of these corners leading into long straights, and it's all the difference you need.
Yeah, the slipstream here is pretty effective, but only really at the end of the straightaway. It takes a long time to get these cars up to their VMAX around this circuit because you're coming out of such a slow corner. A lot of other racetracks where you've got these straightaways that you're entering at 100 miles an hour, you're exiting Oak Tree at maybe 50, and because of that, you're spending a lot of your time accelerating and pushing air out of the way, and it's really not till you're above 100 that draft really starts to feel effective, and maybe 135 until it actually will get you enough pace to overtake somebody. So that slipstream, while the straightaway is very long, is probably not doing enough for Paul Darling.
Yeah, that's why these exits are so important, because that slipstream, as effective as it might be, it's just not enough to really make anything major happen in these Mustangs, and we've seen it. Thought it'd play a little bit more of a factor at Summit Point even, but it just didn't, and we've seen that the last 3 weeks. It's just not as much of a factor as we might have thought. So it just comes down to having such great exits, and you have to really focus on your cornering in these Mustangs, which is not something that's their strong suit, no doubt about it, but it's something you have to do because the slipstream's not going to save you.
Into turn one, Darling really letting the brakes, those brakes glowing hot. 7 minutes to go, and Andrew Pilata has had absolutely no competition tonight. He has just set sail out front and is making this look very easy. It's certainly not, but he hasn't had to defend very much, as here's Herbst going by, rushing into turn one. Herbst on that recovery after going off a couple laps in.
Yeah, it's the first pass I think he's made in a while. He had a lot of time to get from Jack Christie after his spin all the way to Todd Rushing. He made a very strong move around the outside through turn one, not somewhere where you'd expect a pass to be made around the outside.
So he needs to gain about 4.5 seconds to get back in the top 10, which seems unlikely at this stage of the race. And more ground, more daylight between Hausiel, Darling, and Casera now. They are not quite as tightly packed as they were a couple laps ago. Perhaps this is by design, getting a bit more room to get a bigger run, perhaps, but I just haven't seen anything that tells me that Darling or Casera can make a significant jump at Ken Hausiel. Jack Christie back to pit lane. He's had a tough night. Let's see if this is going to add to it.
Yeah, he had some front end damage from what I saw.
Oh, right here.
Air gets sideways, no saving that one. Hard hit.
Yeah, that hurts. Again, just the slightest bit too much load on that left tire, and he clips the curb and unsettles it, and that sends the car around. Back to the second place. 0.2 of a second between second place and third place. As much distance as there was a minute ago, it's come back down to essentially zero as we now come to what should be 3 laps to go.
Sort of interesting. It almost looks like every time someone gets close to Hausiel, every time Darling gets close to Hausiel, or even when Robert Casera gets close to Paul Darling even, it seems like there's almost an effect where they get close to the rear bumper and they just can't corner as well. Sort of like a somewhat dirty air that would do to maybe a NASCAR or even IndyCar, or heck, even Formula One. But it's just interesting to see it maybe even possibly affecting these Mustangs a little bit as Darling gets all over the rear bumper of Ken Hausiel.
Yeah, he's close, but not close enough to get overlap. If he can just get a nose along Hausiel to put him offline, I think there's an opportunity for Paul to complete that pass. And I think if he could get out in front of Ken, he might be a little bit quicker, but just struggling to get enough of a run into a corner to be able to do that exact thing. But he's so close.
Yeah, at one point do you get desperate and try something in a corner that maybe Ken Hausiel isn't expecting a pass? At one point do you do that? Do you even do that? Because you really don't want to piss off the driver that you're going to race with.
No, but I think a guy like Paul Darling is not that kind of driver, right? I mean, he's so cool. He's cool as a cucumber in these races. He really doesn't drive outside of his skill level. If this was a different driver, I'd say there's an opportunity for something like that, but Paul is about as calm as they get. I don't think desperation is in his dictionary. I will say that at times Paul can do optimistic things. It takes a little bit more for Paul to do that, and I think he's got to get a half a car length closer, and then that might be possible, but it would still surprise me if he did something that would put anybody at danger.
I thought you were saying he was just cool as a person.
I mean, he is cool as a person. I've met him a couple times. He actually drove my FRS around Gingerman, and he's a really talented driver, and he's just very humble and quiet about it, and it really shows that you don't have to be the pompous race car driver attitude to be fast, that's for sure. Into roller coaster, he's there. It's just a matter of getting that overlap now as he puts the front bumper right on the taillights of that 23.
Yeah, this battle looking really good. Second through fifth, but under a blanket the entire race, but just no one can find the momentum to make any sort of move. quick move back to the battle for 9th position, exchange hands. Kovac had a shifting issue out of one of the S's and let Mike Leader get right around him, so that battle subsided. Another battle sort of building for the 7th position. Peter Schnorr and Camden Gruber coming together at the end of this one.
Yeah, this could be an interesting one. Gruber was half a second quicker last time around, so we'll keep our one eye on this battle as we go back up to the 1 for 2nd. Darling had a look at Hauseil, and Rob Casera is not playing around anymore. 2 laps to go this time through and keeping that pressure on. Will it boil over at this point? Hauseil has been pretty much flawless, but if he opens up the door, Darling is not going to wait.
Now, Darling, that was the first time I've seen him look into turn number 1, and he just couldn't beat Ken Hauseil under braking there to make anything happen, put him at risk of getting passed by Robert Casera. Jake King's just having a good time watching it all unfold right now, because he has the worst or the best of this, because you have the opportunity to watch everything happen, but you also, you know, you're not going to pass 3 people in the amount of time you have left.
Well, you can pass 3 people if they all crash in front of you. I just don't think that's likely.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, these guys are talented enough where I don't think that'll happen, but Paul Darling gets a little bit of breathing room, and that might make him a bit more aggressive because now he doesn't have Casera right down his neck. Not a huge gap, though, and that might disappear by the time they get back to roller coaster. So if he's going to strike without fear of repercussion, there's a push and a bump. Hauseil definitely taking note. You see the damage to the rear bumper. Hauseil knows Darling is there, and here comes Casera now with a big head of steam.
Don't think Casera can really do much. If he really wanted to get this position, he'd try to pass him in a roller coaster, or he might try pushing Paul Darling. He has a bit of a slipstream, bit of a run. He's going to look drivers left. Doesn't have much positioning to do this, but he's going to go for it. Last gasp almost effort here. He's going to get close to Fedor into a corner.
Oh, in side by side into roller coaster. Peter Schnorr has had an issue, but battle for 2nd. Oh, now Darling and Casera leave the door open for King, but King not able to squeeze down in there. Peter Schnorr digging himself out from Oak Tree, so there was a crash there. Here's Herbst and Kovac side by side for 9th. As this time through, we should get the white flag. There it is. One more time around for Pilata. Leads by 4 seconds, but the battle for 2nd is far from over.
Herbst completed that pass, so a really good job on his recovery run. The battle for 2nd, nothing doing in turn number 1. Paul Darling just not even close enough to make a move. Casera is close enough to at least show the nose, maybe put Darling offline a little bit.
Does Hauseil make a single mistake? There's a slide there from the rear.
Need a little bit more than that to warrant any sort of passing opportunity, especially in this section. Darling is going to have to look for any opportunity, and he's probably going to have no choice but to take it if he wants to spot.
Nice turn 3 for Darling. Caught a bit of curb, and he's close. If he can keep within a half a car length of Hauseil into Oak Tree, he will have an opportunity to dive on Hauseil into roller coaster. Will he do that? Again, I said he wasn't that aggressive, but now it's the last lap. It's game on at this point.
They're trying to look at more battles. Casera and Mike Leader still battling for their positions, but the battle for 2nd still rages on. Hauseil and Darling, bit of a gap on Casera and Jake King now as they sort of slid through the S's. Darling trying to close time, just can't hit the apexes like he wants to. Through South Bend, just can't gain the time he needs.
Only a handful of corners left. Darling needs to be within a half a car length. Here's a look and a dive, and Hauseil slips. Hauseil slips on the brakes, and now Darling is exactly where he needs to be. Slipstream here. He'll put himself in position. Does he go left? Does he go right? He's going to push Hauseil. Now look to the left, but he did not get as clean of a shift as Hauseil does. He gets through the gears nicely. And now battle into roller coaster. Nose to tail for 2nd place. Here comes Paul Darling on driver's left. Not the preferred line here. Will Casera push Hauseil into the braking zone?
Wow.
Side by side, and Darling's early on the brakes. Casera comes up the inside for 3rd place. Now Darling around the outside.
And now all 4 of them bunched up again. Casera tried to get there, couldn't make it work. Darling didn't get a good run out of Oak Tree. They're all scrambling to the line. Hauseil made one mistake, and Darling could not take advantage of it.
Checkered flag for Andrew Pilata, but for 2nd place, it's going to be a run to the line. Hauseil's got it. Darling wants it. It's not quite going to be a win for either of these two, but it will be for Andrew Pilata. He wins the big bore race here tonight at VIR. Hauseil, Darling, Casera, King, all that drama, and they finish as they were. Great battles here as we move back to Bob Casera, Mike Leader. This is 7th and 8th.
They're all going to get by. Casera and Leader sort of spread out at the end. They'll finish, I believe, 7th and 8th. Kyle Herbst recovers all the way to 9th. One more lap, he might have had a shot at both of them. Adam Kovac in 10th.
Yeah, a couple other drivers had some issues tonight. Peter Schnorr turned around late in this race up at Oak Tree. He will come home to a 12th place run. Louis Alessi down in 13th. Kevin Zhu Cristobal Rodriguez, Bob Shoemaker, and Eddie Kedarakis finish up the rest of your order. Jack Chrissy DNFs in this race after the issues that he had.
It's actually quite still a battle for 16th. Bob Shoemaker and Eddie Kedarakis have found each other here at the end of this one. As I say that, Kedarakis has gone around.
Yeah, trouble there at the very, very end. But here's a look at your race winners and your results for our Big Bull race. Don't go anywhere. TCR is coming up in just a couple of minutes. Pilata, Hausil, Darling, your podium for the first race of 2 tonight.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next race. It really looked like last time, this race, it came a lot down to what you do on the start. The positions you gain on the start were really the positions you gain the entire race. So it's going to be interesting to see if that unfolds the same way in TCR.
More racing coming up in just a couple of minutes. Touring car racing from VIR. We'll be back in a few.
In the heart of Virginia, there's a stretch of pavement that has ingrained itself in American racing history. Built in 1957 with just a bulldozer and a plot of land, Virginia International Raceway has become an icon. Over the years since its reopening in 2000, it has hosted IMSA, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR, SCCA, and Champ Car races. Legends have raced there, including Roger Penske, Mark Donohue, Richard Petty, Hurley Haywood, Dan Gurney, and more. Between turns 11 and 12 stood a defying feature, an old oak tree. This tree stood untouched, shading the south end of the course for decades. For some, oak tree became a symbol of VIR and a reminder of how road courses used to be built. They used to be built with the lay of the land, following each contour and moving around obstacles, not through them. Earth may have been moved, but not tarnished. Oak tree was a lasting memory of when tracks were not just built, they came to be, like the tree. Although oak tree no longer stands, nor does Hog Pen turn 17, the corners both still bear the name of what used to exist. And the track stays unchanged the way it was meant to be, with the lay of the land, for the land. Maybe that's why Paul Newman called it heaven on earth.
Back for more for the Washington, D.C. Region Virtual Racing League, round number 3 here from Virginia International Raceway. The big bore cars, the Mustangs, have gotten their race out of the way. Andrew Pilata was victorious there. Now we move to wrong-wheel drive, the front-wheel drive cars tonight for our last race of the evening. In round 3, Kyle Heyer alongside Connor Horn. Connor, welcome back. This time front-wheel drive touring cars. Man, oh man, I was saying even before the broadcast began how much I love watching these things race.
These things are so fun racing. The last 2 races, 2 weeks so far, they've been an absolute blast. There's been battles for the race lead all the way back to outside the top 20. There's always racing around any track that these TCRs have got to, and it's been such a blast. It's going to be another blast.
Andrew Pilata just won the big bore race, and he goes straight to the top of the board in TCR qualifying. He has found his home tonight as he rolls around in that number 96. Pilata currently the quickest driver on the board. DJ Alessandrini in the number 61 right now in 5th. Matt Waldbaum in 4th in his ASM. Number 19, Ken Ausiel 2nd. And Waldbaum goes to the top of the board here with a 1:59.660. That puts him out front by 55 thousandths. Colin Daner in the number 9. Here he comes across the line looking great in the Phoenix Performance number 9. Reminiscent of that, again, that Phoenix Performance race team that often runs Corvettes in SCCA competition. Colin runs in 6th. Big field tonight, almost 30 cars. And Greg Ginsburg running an Oreo livery. Connor, do you know what day it is?
What day is it?
It is the 110th birthday of the Oreo cookie, Milk's favorite cookie.
Oh, I did not know that. I should have ate Oreos earlier to recognize it, if I only knew.
Yeah, Greg Ginsburg real excited about that. Got Milk on the nose of that car, so good to see Greg running and recognizing Milk's favorite cookie here at Virginia International Raceway. Not sponsored, I wish it was. Send us Oreos. I'll gladly take them. Paul Darling just came up short in that battle, but here he is right now. He has yet to put in a lap in qualifying, and we'll see if he will start up front or if he will have to fight from the back. Again, we're actually over 30 cars at this point, so he'd be pretty deep if he does not get a lap in here, but I'm sure, being Paul, he probably will.
Look at the body lean with the way he's trying to send this thing to get a fast lap.
And into Oak Tree now and up onto the back straightaway. And it's a long run down here in the TCR on board with Darling. Watch the speed climb. We are just shy of 140 in the Ford Mustang, and we should probably be around there in the TCR car. Turbocharged power this time, 130. Will we be north of 140, 136, 137? Oh yeah, easily 141 before the jump onto the brakes.
We're going to see a lot more speed going into these sections of the track. I think the Mustangs are only hitting around 135, as in the slipstream we might see even 145 at certain points. Make for a little bit more chaos going into these hard braking sections.
DJ Alessandrini just came across the line and ran his fastest lap, and that will put him back on top. Andrew Pilata, Morgan Burkhardt all go quicker than Matt Waldbaum, who was your previous provisional pole sitter. And Caleb Patry in the 898 up to 6th. That's a pretty solid run. And Jack Christie, who had a tough race in the big bore race, he will roll off in 7th. Paul Darling goes 8th quickest here on his one and only qualifying lap. Oh, we'll make that 9th. Herbst, fourth fastest. And it's going pretty quick. Drivers are going a lot quicker on their 2nd and 3rd laps because those tires take a few to really get into their sweet spot.
Also, Journey, I think, is just about to cross the line. See what type of lap he puts down. A 158.915, and he will go to the pole position.
So DJ back up in command there, ran his fastest lap on his final lap. And that should be indicative of how this is going to go tonight. Louis Alessi in that number 43. I don't think he's even going to get a lap in. Certainly will not. He's parked on pit lane. Vincent Mack, this is a name I don't recognize, so he might be new tonight. Currently scored in 28th, a couple seconds off the pace, 5.5 from the pole sitter in the LA Honda World livery. Joe Camilleri is back this week, Tim Saunders, Todd Rushing, and 31 cars here for our final race of the evening, and Ken Ausiel just went 5th quickest, so he will start on row number 3 for our touring car race. Checkered flag in qualifying. We'll head down to bring you the green flag in just a couple of minutes, but qualifying was very, very intense. Had a lot of really close times at the top of the board here, Connor. That tells me this race is going to be fierce.
It's going to be fierce. It's going to be, we're going to see a lot of fierce battling for position, because we saw in the Mustang race, whatever you gained on the initial start through the first 2 or 3 corners, it's pretty much where you finished. We didn't see a lot of passing. 2nd through 5th were under a blanket, and neither of them could pass each other. 2nd through 5th exactly the same. So it's going to be interesting to see if we get more of the same in the TCRs. We might see a frantic start after what we saw in the Mustang races. We might see a lot more drivers sort of going for desperation moves because they know that might be their only opportunity to make a pass for that certain position.
Yeah, I think these cars might be a little bit easier to get passes in than the Mustang. A bit more slipstream at play here, I think, and a bit more cornering ability as well. So I think they're going to be a little better to drive than the Mustangs were, at least dynamically. Big field. I misspoke. We had 31 cars, make that 33. A couple late joins. Eric Anderson all the way at the back of the field. And we mentioned Louis Alessi did not get a qualifying lap in. He will start in 32nd in the Atlanta Speedworks Honda Civic. That's a car that you're familiar seeing if you've watched IMSA races in the past, so good to see that car represented here alongside the LA Honda World car. So two cars in a row there that run in the real-world IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, or at least did at one point.
It'll be fun to watch it whip around this racetrack. Still waiting for Alessandrina to load up. Another long pace lap talked about in the Mustangs. Going to be very vital for these drivers who dearly missed their pace lap to warm the tires up last week, and they'll get a crack at warming the tires up this week at least.
Yeah, they will get a chance to do so. I know that DJ Alessandrini was fighting his virtual reality system. It was crashing on him a bunch yesterday, so hopefully those issues are not going to prevent him from joining. He's going to have 15 seconds. There he goes, finally jumps on the grid. And there's a couple of people that did not make the grid. Caleb Patry, Jack Chrissy, Zach Rubin, Colin Daner, Joe Camilleri, Don Manning, Donald Louis, and Eric Anderson. I think all those drivers, did they miss their grid spot? No, they should. Oh, they are here. I don't know why they're showing up as grayed out for me, but they are on track.
Only Donald Louis, I believe, might have missed the start. He's the only driver who hasn't joined the session, so whatever happened to him, it's a shame. I don't think he'll be starting this one.
All right, time to go through our starting lineup here. On the first row, going to be DJ Alessandrini, a 158.916, a very strong qualifying effort. Andrew Pilata just won the Big Bull race. He's going to go 2 for 2 tonight at VIR.
We'll see about that. Morgan Burkhardt might have something to say about it. He starts P3 on row 2 alongside Kyle Herbst, who had the spin in the Big Boar's last race. He's P4.
Hal Seal went defensive all of the Ford Mustang race, looking to be more offensive this time. He'll start alongside Matt Waldbaum in row number 3.
Caleb Patry, driver, always to look at. All these drivers right on top of each other at times. Only 8/1000th of a second separating Patry from Jack Chrissy on row 4.
Row 5, Paul Darling in the number 155 alongside Zach Rubin. He will start 10th in his number 7.
Robert Gracera was trying to attack, and just could not do it. He qualifies 11th, has some ground to make up in this one. Colin Daner starts alongside him with the first 2-minute lap.
In row number 7, Darian Taggart in the number 75. He will start alongside Francois Brou, who has the cleanest driving record in the WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. Going to try to keep that and move forward tonight from 14th.
Another clean driver in the row behind, Faraz Barzinji in P15. Alongside him, another driver that we see from time to time, Robert Porter in P16.
Adam Kobach rolls off 17th in his number 85. Had a good scrap in the Big Bore race. Going to look to have the same in the TCR race. He'll start alongside Mark LeBance at 18th.
I think Mike Leader was the driver he was scrapping with at the end of it. He starts right behind Kobach, actually, in P19 and P20. Rounding out the top 20 is Todd Rushing.
21st, Bob Casera rolls off in his number 28 car alongside Tim Saunders in the number 16. That's that Valvoline livery car.
Very beautiful livery. Always love seeing anything Valvoline, unless it's that William Byron scheme, which wasn't that good. But never mind that. P23, John Willeman, 201.416. It was his time. Right alongside him, Wojtek Hadjisek, P24.
25th place, Joe Camilleri in the number 13. And Don Manning will roll off 26th in the number 92.
Then the next row, 27th place and 28th place in this order, Cristobal Rodriguez alongside Vincent Mack.
And wrapping up the rest of the field here, Greg Ginsburg in the number 72. Donald Louis, we mentioned, did not take the grid, but Louis Alessi did. He will be the last driver on the racetrack for the start of this race, unless Eric Anderson joined the field. He did not, so we're going to have 30 cars even to start our final race of the evening. DJ Alessandrini on that front row alongside Andrew Pilata. I love TCR racing. I love how intense and physical it is. I love how much you can lean on each other and come out the other side. I love how these cars sound. I love how these cars look. This is going to be a fun one here at Heaven on Earth, as Paul Newman said it. Big thanks again to Luke McGrew for recording that for me last year. Gotten plenty of uses of that video out. We return to VIR pretty much as often as we go to Summit Point here in this series, and I'm not upset about it at all. Would love to see a reboot of VIR, a new rescan with the announcement that the SCCA runoffs will come to iRacing this fall. I think this track could use a little bit more attention and update it to 2021 standards. We'll have to lose the oak tree, but I think at the end of the day, it's worth it for some more modern updates. Out of the final corner, and this long run down to turn number 1, Alessandrini and Pilata. 61 versus 96. Flagman has the green flag in hand. This race will approximately be 11 laps here tonight. And now VIR, WDCR SCCA Virtual Racing League. Green flag flies, and we're going. This is going to be a wild one. 3 wide already at the front of the field.
It's Herbst in the middle. Matt Waldbaum trying to make something happen. Ken Alciel just trying to survive. Survival is going to be the name of the game in turn 1. A lot of drivers missing their braking point. That's Paul Darling out of shape into Zach Rubin.
Yeah, he's going to tag Zach Rubin and send him around, and damage for Rubin. I think everyone else will probably escape okay, but that was an uncharacteristic mistake for Darling. I wonder if he got shuffled out there, Connor. I didn't get a good look at it, but he might have gotten a hip check that put him off in the grass.
Didn't quite see it either. I think he tried to make a move, and he just did not have the room for it. Sort of like, I think it was Villeneuve's move at Road America one year on a restart. Everyone's still trying to single file out. They've done a pretty good job. Casera and Taggart almost came together trying to do that before they got to the yeses. Everyone's still sorting it out. Alessandrini's maintaining the lead.
Yeah, through Snake now and heading up the hill. It's Alessandrini. Morgan Burkhardt into second place. He's been really impressive in this Audi RS3 TCR. Think back to Road Atlanta last week. He was the man in second, putting pressure on DJ. Wasn't quite able to crack him, but he is back in business. Got by Pilata on the opening lap, and he might be the one to bring power up to the front for the Audi.
People trying to go side by side, coming close up to Oak Hill. Didn't do anything there. We'll see if Burkhardt has anything for Alessandrini. Top 2, these two sort of scoot away a little bit. Pilata trying to keep in touch. Everyone's sort of spreading out down the straightaways. No one really with any big runs at the moment. Pretty single file until we get about to rushing in the leader for about the 18th position.
Alessandrini stays on the racing line. Burkhardt with a big run. Is he going to stay or is he going to pop out? He's going to stay there for now. If he can match Alessandrini lap for lap, this is going to be a really good thing for that too. And Matt Waldbaum is off course behind it into the trees.
Oh, he actually missed a tire barrier. Not sure how he missed a tire barrier. I thought that was a certain big hit, but he's going to save it, but I don't think he's going to want to continue after losing so much time there.
No, he got on the brakes and just got squirrely and then just chased the car off track. It's going to cost him a whole lot. Cristobal Rodriguez is off course in roller coaster, and Colin Daner is off track in the final corner, but he will wrestle the car back on.
That was way out of there, almost into Todd rushing there, as a few drivers just making sort of silly mistakes here at the beginning of this one right now. Some drivers swinging way wide. I think that's Tim Saunders trying to look for any way to get around Mike Leader, looking for a lane, and Mike Leader finds the grass.
Yeah, drivers just tiptoeing right now, and the tire's not quite up to temp, and catching a few drivers out. Halseal's in that 23. That's the white and red car with the Gathers logo on the side, chasing Kyle Herbst in the 89. The front 3 beginning to break away with Pilata, the caboose of that train. That's space that they could desperately use. If you can get a 3-car breakaway and only race amongst yourselves, that will massively simplify the fighting that they will have to do later this race.
Just have to see how all of that sorts out, as I think like you were talking about these top 3, sort of how we've seen in the past, sort of scooting away, excuse me, from the rest of the field, sort of bumper to bumper here. Alessandrini keep in check, nice and smooth, no mistakes there, actually hit the apex as perfect as he can. Good run, not letting Burkhardt have any sort of advantage.
Here's Tim Saunders up the inside of Colin Daner. This is a battle for 16th place. Daner on a recovery after his mistake at Hogpen. Bit of an internet connectivity issue for him, and a couple drivers scattering to try to get around him, but they're not going to have the run to do it. Burkhardt is right with Alessandrini, but not putting the pressure on him as if he wants to get by. I think he's being patient right now. He knows as long as he doesn't make any mistakes, he can stay with the 61 and leave him vulnerable on that last lap.
There's not going to be a lot of opportunity for Alessandrini to stretch that lead out, so it's important, like you're talking about, for Burkhardt to just sort of bide your time, stay with him. Maybe if he makes a mistake, great, but it's DJ Alessandrini. That's not likely. So the best thing you can do here, get the slipstream when you can, just to stay sort of close to Alessandrini's bumper.
So retirements early. Paul Darling, Matt Waldbaum, Zach Rubin, the other 28 drivers that started this race are on the racetrack still. Pilata goes down the inside of Burkhardt for second. We'll see if the 2-car can maintain overlap and get this position back, but this is how DJ can get away, is if these two fight amongst themselves.
That was a heck of a dive by Pallotta. He went so deep on the brakes. I couldn't believe he made the corner, but he was able to make it work. Still trying to keep positioning on Burkhardt. Burkhardt just kind of got to force him out there, and that's a lot of time lost. And Burkhardt's probably not going to be happy about that, but Pallotta's probably more upset because he thinks he's faster right now.
Big chunk taken out of the rumble strip up the snake. You got to be really careful about that. You can get a slowdown for cutting that too much. That did give a second worth of time to Alessandrini, which I don't think they wanted to do, but Pallotta might have thought he's faster than Burkhardt, but at this stage in the race, I don't think it's worth letting Alessandrini get away just to be one spot closer to the front. I think if Pallotta wants to make a move, you're going to push Burkhardt up to DJ before you do that instead of battling behind him and giving him free space.
Christie went wide for a moment, gathered it back up, and what that did was bring Kyle Herbst right behind Andrew Pallotta for a split moment here in that curving machine, which is very, very cute to see on a racetrack, but Herbst isn't able to make anything work out of Oak Tree. Pallotta gets a little bit of ground back, but
Mike Leader
got way away.
Mike Leader buried in the wall. This is that snake? Yeah, here it is. He was right behind the 11 car. Oh, that was a hardware failure.
Wow.
That's what that was. That was a wheel becoming disconnected. Sim racing equipment occasionally has a failure, Connor, and it looks just like this.
Sort of, I guess the word for it's disconnected. I think what happened, I've had that happen before, and it's so odd. It's like all the inputs go full on, full gas, brake, and maybe clutch, and also the wheel just slips all the way to the left. I've had that happen with my Thrustmaster. Don't know if that's the same thing, but it looks eerily similar as he's finally reset.
That's a frustrating one. You kind of count on this equipment always working, and that's never a guarantee. And just like blowing a tire or having an equipment, parts failure on the real life racetrack, and having a suspension part fail or brakes fail, that can happen with your electronics in the sim world, and that's what looked like happened to Mike Leader. Here's Wojtek Hajicek and Tim Saunders. This is a battle for 17th place, and give the spot to Hajicek, running the same livery as Herbst. Crossover by Saunders, nicely done.
Didn't even notice there was another curving machine, so there's two. I assume they got to be teammates for sure. As Hajicek on the defensive now, on the inside line, he will keep that position.
I don't think there's any team relation there. I think that it was just luck of the draw. Colin Daner up the inside of Labance took a swipe. Not enough to get there. Meanwhile, up front, Alessandrini's lead, it was 1.2 seconds. It has come down again. Burkhardt is fast enough to stay with him, as here's a battle into the S's, Taggart and Casera. Taggart grabs the spot, but Burkhardt is fast enough to run Alessandrini back down. So that is a note to Andrew Pallotta that maybe being a little bit patient at this stage in the race could pay off. That 2-car is quick.
Yeah, he is quick indeed, but how long is he going to stay as quick as the 61? We've seen it time and time again. Alessandrini doesn't maybe fire off as fast as maybe he will at other points, but he can save the tires on these TCRs better than anyone in the field currently. Someone was flashing the lights. I think that was Halcyon flashing the lights or something. But Alessandrini, he's good at saving the tires. He's in it for the long haul. He knows how to make the tires last the perfect amount for 20 minutes. So in my eyes, if I'm Burkhardt, I've seen this act before. He's probably just saving tires. So you need to pounce at him when you can.
Faraz Barzinji and Robert Porter trading positions for 10th. Very cautiously racing through roller coaster. Nicely done, boys, leaving plenty of space. This is what I love. I know you can beat and bang with these cars, Connor, but it makes me very, very happy when two drivers can go through a tough corner like that and not run into each other. That is a perfect example of clean racing, and you love to see it. Francois Brou has got Adam Kovac all over the tailpipes of his Hyundai Elantra N, and they're going to drag race down the front stretch.
Up ahead of them, Faraz Barzinji going on the outside of Robert Porter, so two identical pass attempts being made here into turn number 1. Will any of them be successful? Barzinji sends it in. Kovac and Brou both send it in. Kovac trying to hold around the outside. Porter defends. Brou cannot get the power down to make that complete.
Have to try it again. Todd Rushing right behind Francois Brou. Might have been a little too close. Got spooked through NASCAR. And a lot of patience required with these front-wheel drive cars. Can't just hammer the throttle and turn it. You got to let the front wheels rest for a moment. They can only really effectively do one thing at a time. Anytime that you're braking and steering, you're limiting your ability to do either of those two things. The same goes for acceleration. So the way they're running down up the S's here, it's Brou and Rushing for 13th and 14th, the 69 and the 31. They continue to battle just outside the top 10, but it's DJ Alessandrini out front in the TCR category. Morgan Burkhardt right behind. Then it's Andrew Pilata, Herbst, Hausiel, and then it's a little ways back to Patrick, and he's got Jack Chrissy tucked up the rear wing. That's that number 6, the BWT car. Chrissy had a rough night in the Mustangs, but now competing very aggressively in his Hyundai Elantra N in the second and final race of the night. 10 minutes to go, halfway through, and right to the rear bumper of Patrick. They are just about in distance to catch Hausiel and the rest of that top 5. Tim Saunders and Wojciech Hadjusek, they run nose to tail off into roller coaster as well.
Yeah, neither of them will make a move. Not really anywhere where anyone wants to make a move. It's sort of a last-ditch passing zone, in my opinion. You never really want to plan a passing attempt there, but we've seen it happen before, and we'll definitely see it happen again. Trying to look at more battles. Joe Camilleri, sort of the plaid car. He's been defending on Lewis and Lacey, and he's going to go wide through the grass. Oh, and a huge hit on that tire barrier.
Yeah, that was a pretty nasty hit. Was there contact here? No, it just bounces, and Whammo is going to catch the tire bundles. It's a big hit for the 13. That'll probably be it for him. Back out front, Alessandrini and Burkhardt still nose to tail, and Burkhardt was within striking distance that last time around. Didn't take the bite, though. He's being very patient right now, and I like that. But with 9 minutes left, you got to start thinking about how you're going to make this move. And maybe if I'm Morgan Burkhardt, I'm going to start taking some test swipes at DJ to see how he will respond to that attack.
Yeah, this might be the start of it here. He's all over him. We might see the first swipe here, trying to be more precise through Snake, up South Bend, into Oak Hill, trying to get positioning, better apexing, sort of gaining ground every little bit. See if he tries anything into Oak Hill, stays in line, trying to find any sort of room, any sort of place to gain any sort of ground on Alessandrini. One place he won't gain ground is on the exit here, as Alessandrini gets a really good exit.
Down the back straightaway now, heading up towards roller coaster, and in the slipstream, Burkhardt's got a head of steam. Is he going to do anything with it? Will he sit on it? Here he comes. DJ goes defensive a little bit, but Burkhardt is going to stay in line. Bit surprised by that. He had enough of a run that he probably could have gotten fully alongside and done something about it. Herbst, wow, bit of a bobble there on the brakes.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to wipe Pilata out there for a second, but I feel like at some point we've seen it before. We talk about it over and over again. Alessandrini saves the tires, and he's able to pull away by the end of it. I just wouldn't wait if I was Morgan Burkhardt. If I have an opportunity, a run like that, even if it's an aggressive part of a track to be passing, I'm taking an opportunity and going for the position.
Hadjusek and Saunders trade spots, and Hadjusek goes wide. That roller coaster now back. Alessandrini and Burkhardt into turn 1. And here comes Pilata. Big dive again. Opportunistic move here. He's definitely not as patient as the 2 car is tonight. He's on a mission. Here, contact behind him. Chrissy and Patrick get together.
Yeah, they finally caught up a little bit. Chrissy had a little bit of a late send. Patrick tried shutting the door and couldn't. Those 2 trade spots. Chrissy's 6th now. And obviously the battle for 2nd. Pilata's taken that position. It looked like Burkhardt was gaining ground, and he looked to be the faster of the 2. With Pilata, he's been way better under braking to turn number 1, and he took the opportunity when he had it.
So the question becomes now, is Pilata going to stay as quiet as Burkhardt did in 2nd, or will he try to get by Alessandrini? Half a second back. If he has the run that Burkhardt had on the back straightaway last time, I think he's going to do something with it, and that could really spice things up here in the final 7 minutes of this race. We are going to have about 3 laps to go, maybe 4 laps to go next time by.
Here they go through Oak Tree, T-R-E-E. Let me remember that. Write that down.
I had to message him. I was afraid I would just let it go too long, and everyone would judge you for it later. Oak Hill is a nice golf course in Rochester, New York, I think.
I know the difference. Words difficult, but still looking at Pilata here. We'll see. He actually did gain a good bit of ground through there. We'll see if he can do anything maybe into turn number 1 as he's starting to build up a sort of a run. This might be his one charge he's going to have at Alessandrini.
Not enough to get alongside or any overlap. But again, I don't think Pilata is really willing to play as conservative as Burkhardt was. Remember, Burkhardt he runs well, but I don't think you typically see him, at least we haven't, really take the fight to DJ as he has the last couple weeks. So he doesn't want to do anything silly that's going to take him out of this fight. So maybe playing the game and running behind DJ is a good long-term strategy, and I don't disagree. I just think at some point you've got to be more aggressive and be willing to race. You signed up for a race, get out there, make the pass.
Well, it might be a good long-term strategy, but we'll look at the timer. We're under 6 minutes to go. This isn't a long-term race now. You have to sort of treat it as a sprint at this point. And if you were treating it as a long-term race at the start, you should hopefully have enough tire to make any sort of move for the race lead.
Yeah, I think the long-term goal would be to finish well in the points and have a shot at the prizing that's available this season. But I think for Burkhardt, that's probably the bigger picture is, finish well and don't put yourself at risk and get, pushed wide or shoved off. And there's something to that. But I think when you've got guys like Pilata who are really just running for the guts and the glory here, he's not going to sit behind you and watch you be conservative. He's going to go up there and try to make a pass. However, Pilata has not been able to keep that gap as small as Burkhardt did. I think that 2 is a little bit stronger this race.
The gap that's close is the one for 4th. Herbst and Hausiel have kind of backed off those top 3 once again as they're in a battle of their own. Hausiel trying to gain any sort of ground. He was on the bumper of Herbst, lost a little bit of ground there. Jack Ritchie just keeps going wide out of South Bend.
Into Oak Tree, Alessandrini, Pilata, half a car length between them. And then it's Morgan Burkhardt, Kyle Herbst, Ken Hausiel, Jack Chrissy, and Caleb Patry. 6, make that 7 drivers nose to tail. I'd say about 3 of them are within immediate winning distance. And Pilata with a big head of steam here. Will he do anything about it? He just doesn't have enough of a head of steam. That Honda has some pretty good legs up on the straightaway. The Audi, though, I think is a little better than either of those 2 cars.
Burkhardt's still trying to maybe find a way back around Pilata, but he's probably frustrated maybe a little bit with Pilata that he messed up the run. He might have had Alessandrini, but that's just racing, I suppose. One thing that can really get on a driver's nerves is having a driver in your rear bumper when you're trying to chase down a leader. We've seen it time and time again. The trains sort of build up at the front in these TCRs, and you have someone behind you just distracting you like Pilata was doing to Burkhardt, and now what Burkhardt's doing to Pilata just gets you distracted off the main goal of the lead, but now the battle's for second.
Yeah, I think that there's totally something to that, right? I mean, the last thing that you want is someone either in front of you that's just slightly slower and you can't pass, or someone behind you that's slightly faster and keeps trying to pass. There is a lot of frustration from both sides of that party there. I think Pilata feels that he is the stronger candidate to beat the 61. I think the 2 car would disagree. I would just say from my, layman's perspective, I think that 2 car is faster and was more aggressive from a pace standpoint than Andrew Pilata. I think Pilata would be the better driver to make a pass. I think the problem is he's just not as fast. So they got to kind of team up against DJ because they're not running him down right now.
And that's been sort of what they've been lacking. They haven't been able to really work together to get by Alessandrini. One driver can't do it alone. 2 will have to do it together, but that's just not really going to be possible at this point of the race. I think there's going to be too much of a fight for second to even consider someone taking down Alessandrini now.
Darian Taggart, running the ASM livery, rides behind Rob Casera. This is a battle for 8th. Ooh, Casera turns in early. Nicely hooks the curb, though, at the crest of South Bend and into Oak Tree now. So 4/10 is the difference between the race leader and the second place car. That's what it looks like. And this time through, it's going to be awful close to 1 lap to go, but I think we're going to be hitting 2 to go this time around. 26 seconds until it would be white flag.
Pilata really setting it under braking now. Gains a little bit of time there. Should be able to maintain a decent amount of it. Burkhardt really backed off there. Maybe trying to get a run through here. See what he can do down the long straightaway. All these drivers still sort of in it. Top 6, still pretty bumper to bumper. Caleb Patry's fallen off a little bit, but he's still very well in the conversation.
There it is, white flag. This will be the last time around Virginia International Raceway. 1 more lap to go. And DJ Alessandrini has a 0.3 of a second lead, and Morgan Burkhardt losing his patience. You see him popping out of line. He wants by. Pilata is so close to Alessandrini. 0.3 into turn 1. He's going to have to do better than that, though. I just don't think the Hyundai has the legs here on the straightaways. I think the Audi is the quickest in a straight line. The Honda is the middle of the 2. And the Hyundai seems to be the slowest, but Pilata's making it work in this first sector using every inch of the road.
Hit the curb a little bit awkwardly there, maybe lost some time. I wonder if it's going to be sort of a frantic run to the finish. I don't know if the drivers were really expecting the white flag there, but they got it anyways. Now Alessandrini has to defend for 1 more lap, and Pilata has to frantically search for any sort of way to have a run at Alessandrini at least.
So what do? You're going to get that Hyundai cranked up and then stand it on its nose into the braking zone for Oak Tree and then into roller coaster. And does Burkhardt play ball at this point? Is he just fighting for second? Or does he think he can push Pilata past Alessandrini? Into South Bend. Was DJ offline just a touch? He lost a little bit of ground. Pilata is within striking distance if he can just get to that rear bumper. 1 more time through Oak Tree, and he is there. 1 more run down the back straight.
He just hasn't been able to master getting out of Oak Tree yet. I think I saw Chris, he really went offline there, but he wasn't able to get a good exit there at any point in this race, and it's really cost him. He's never been able to even take a look at a roller coaster. Will he try one last dive? He's looking.
Here we go. Big head of steam. Morgan Burkhardt has more, but nowhere to go with it. Alessandrini doesn't even have to protect, and Burkhardt right to Pilata's rear bumper now into roller coaster. Coming back to the checkers this time. Alessandrini leads by 2/10. Is it enough? He's been out front since the drop of the green flag, and no pressure from behind, and Pilata in the final corner. Flag to flag. DJ Alessandrini covers the field. They're coming back to the checkers this time. DJ Alessandrini with lights flashing in the mirror will win at VIR. Morgan Burkhardt in third after Andrew Pilata, then Herbst and Halseal wrap up the rest of the top 5. Still a couple battles coming to the checkers. That's Tim Saunders and Colin Daner. They're both off course.
That was never going to really work there. You kind of saw that coming.
Saunders going lawn mowing here, trying to get back on track and serve the slowdown before Daner can come back around. That's not going to work.
Oh, Daner sideways, though, trying to maybe check up for Saunders. If Saunders can pull off the slowdown, he has position, but I'd be surprised if he didn't just have a black flag. He cut the entire corner.
He might have gotten away with it and coming to the line. He's going to get 16th. Colin Daner and Alessi banging doors to the checkers, and Daner for 17th place gets it by 50 thousandths of a second. That was fun.
Alessi goes lawn mowing. I don't know if Alessi's going to really be happy about that. Oh, Casera and Hadjisek come together at the end there. Some kind of said it right at the beginning of the final lap. Frantic finishing. Maybe not everyone expecting a white flag there, but they got it.
Wow, good stuff there, especially for 17th at the end. That was fun. DJ Alessandrini gets it done. Andrew Pilata, Morgan Burkhardt, Kyle Herbst, Ken Halseal, your top 5. Connor, that was a fun one.
Oh, that was fun, no doubt about it. Had battles all the way up and down the order, just like we've seen the past 2 weeks before. We saw it again. The one difference here at this VIR racetrack, it seemed like the start really dictated the race. Very difficult to get a run going into passing zones, and we saw that happen yet again. Alessandrini was just able to control the race.
Hopefully going to talk to a couple of our podium drivers here in just a minute. And there's a look at the rest of the order. Mike Leader had some issues and drops out of the top 20. Greg Ginsburg, 110th birthday of the Oreo cookie, finishes 25th with that livery on it. Morgan Burkhardt finished in third tonight and came up just short again. This time third, Morgan, instead of second. Gave it all you had, but couldn't quite beat Pilata and Alessandrini. I think you had the pace to beat both. Take us through your race.
Yeah, it was from the start, just kind of get away well, avoid any carnage that might happen, then kind of stay in line. Use the draft to conserve its tires, and I definitely had the best tires at the end. I had the pace to do it, but I didn't play the final sequence quite right, and I couldn't quite pull it off. But the pace is very encouraging.
Yeah, I think you've really gotten accustomed to this car, and you've been very, very quick in it. It's going to only be a matter of time before we get that breakthrough. Of the tracks coming up ahead, of course, we've had Road Atlanta and VIR. Those have been very good tracks for you. But up next, we've got Coda, Oran Park, and Brands Hatch. Anything in particular that you got circled?
Brands Hatch is definitely one that's circled for me. I love that track. I love this car there. And in building setups for Premier Racing setups, I've done a lot of laps there recently, and it's just a dream to drive. I love it.
Morgan, congratulations. Really strong run tonight. P3 for you in the number 2. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Up next, Andrew Pilata came home in second, and it was a dive on the brakes into turn 1 that got you by Morgan Burkhardt, but then couldn't quite catch DJ. Andrew, what'd you need to get that 61 car?
Probably a little bit more pace. I think I had a good amount of it, especially going into turn 1, but there just really wasn't quite enough, not quite enough time or tire left over to kind of finish the job at the end.
Tell me about the difference between the Hyundai, the Audi, and the Honda. It seemed like the Hyundai was lacking just a little bit of top-end speed here. Just feel like that held you back a bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but the thing is, though, it was really good in the corners, so it's been struggling a lot at some of the other tracks, like especially compared to the Honda and the Audi and straight line speed, but in like total raw corner speed, it seems to be pretty good. So I think for once, VIR was kind of a track that actually worked pretty well for it, so I'm happy.
Well done, Andrew. Second place. We'll see you next week at Coda.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to DJ Alessandrini. Gets it done. Everything happened in the mirror tonight, DJ, but man, Morgan Burkhardt and Andrew Pilata kept you honest tonight. Take us through what you saw off the mirror and what you saw at the windshield.
Yeah, hey, can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay. Yeah, man, I That was a little nerve-wracking on the last lap because I was making my time in the snake area on the bottom of the S's, and that was kind of protecting me on the back straight. But on the last lap, the one mistake I made the whole race, I kind of understeered into the bottom of the snake, and it kind of brought Andrew like right up to my bumper, and I knew I was going to have to crush Oak Tree to have any chance of holding them off, and it was probably my best Oak Tree of the night. So honestly, got kind of lucky because I threw it in there with a little bit of reckless abandon to try to hold on to the win there. But yeah, just managed my race. I held on my tires. I tried to encourage some fighting behind me, but they weren't really fighting too much, and yeah, just had to manage my race. It was fun.
Managed race, successful. Dakota up next week, DJ. We'll see you there. Congratulations.
Yep, thanks guys.
All right, kind of wrapping things up here tonight. DJ gets another one. No surprises there, but I think the other surprise is how racy VIR was. Maybe not a surprise to those who love this place, but man, TCR cars, VIR, good combination.
The TCR cars at any track is a good combination. You could put these things at the LA Coliseum and it'd probably race relatively well. So it's very exciting. Every week, it's so exciting to watch these things. And also the Mustangs are always a blast to watch drivers just throw the thing around when it's really tough to throw around a car like that. So it's just all in all a very good week of racing once again.
Fun to watch, fun to race. We'll see you next week from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Kyle Heyer, Connor Horn out. We'll see you next time.